I'm Gemma and this is Non-Fic Books, and I have a love book to review today. This book was kindly sent to me by the publishers at Pen and Sword, and I couldn't help but pick it up during Non-Fiction November as it very clearly fits into the love category. And that is Tanya O'Donnell's A History of Courtship, 800 Years of Seduction Techniques. This is relatively small at 132 pages long and was published this year. It is, as it says, the title gives you a clue, a history of courtship over the last 800 years. So with it being 800 years in a small book, it is very much an overview and an introduction. And as an introduction, I think it is a really great book to pick up. She looks at love at first sight, dressing and presenting yourself for seduction, love tokens, how to spot a wrong-un, the importance of chaperones, and love after marriage, because for a lot of history, love after marriage was really the time where love developed and love had an opportunity to develop. She starts off looking at things like courtly love in the 12th century and how some of the things like getting down on one knee are actually remnants from that historical period, and I thought that was great. And then she sort of zooms through up until the Victorian period with their Valentine's Day cards, sentimental jewellery that could be worn as a token of love but then might also be worn as memento mori if anything happens, and then things like etiquette books which would tell you how to write love letters or how to write to a woman's father to address your interest and how they should write back to you. And one of these has a letter about falling in love. This is a letter for the woman in your life. Dear Madam, I have been so harassed with love, doubt, distraction, and 1,000 other wild and nameless feelings since I had the happiness of being in your company, that I have been unable to form one sane reflection, or to separate events from the feelings that accompanied them. In fact, I have been totally unable to bring my thoughts into anything like regularity, for they are so entirely mixed up with the idea of yourself that the business of this world and the pursuits of amusement and pleasure have been entirely forgotten in the one passion that holds undivided empire over my soul. Wow, that's a florid letter and a half, but also I think describes very well the sort of heady, crazy bit of falling in love where you're all over the place and thankfully settles down after that. But I just thought it's wonderful. I love things that really show you that we don't change very much as people. Overall, history as we study it is such a tiny part of human evolution that throughout this time people just weren't that different, and I love little snippets like that really remind you of that. Tanya O'Donnell has written about relationships for magazines and papers like the Metro or the Guardian, and I think you can really tell that she comes from a journalistic background because her writing is relatively simple and easy to read, and she gives a good sort of flow throughout the book. So I certainly flew through this book. I found it very easy to read and yet still has a nice amount of information. My one criticism with this book is really the size of it. 132 pages is just so short for this topic, and I really would prefer a book of 400 or 500 pages even about this subject, because there are so many things that were sort of just mentioned or dropped in, or eras that were skimmed over very briefly that I would have loved to read more about. But as an overview, maybe if you're interested in writing historical fiction, and if you are interested in Regency romances or things like that, or just historical romances in general, I think this would be a lovely book and would really sort of add to your enjoyment of those stories and help if you are trying to write to make sure you get things accurately, because sometimes what we presume to have happened is not how people in the past really went about things. So this is a lovely book, and thank you very much to Pen and Sword for sending it to me for review. It has been great fun, and as a love book, as I always go off piste anyway, this was a really good one to pick up. Have you read anything for love so far? Have you got any suggestions or any queries about love as a category? And if so, leave questions and comments down below as always, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!